Hello! Welcome to the Game Informer Show, a weekly podcast covering the video game industry. Join us every Thursday as we discuss the latest gaming news, reviews, and exclusive reveals alongside Game Informer staff and special guests from around the industry. I am your host, Marcus Stewart. Alex Van Aken, unknown. What are we saying? He's in parts unknown right now. Chilling out somewhere,
well, I guess.
I mean, that's what he claims to say.
That's what he claims.
We don't. Yeah, who knows where he actually
I like
is.
inventing this new backstory of like, he got called in for something, but we don't know from who or what for.
Those voices you hear, first and foremost, Kyle Hilliard. How you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing all right. Sorry to interrupt your intro. I shouldn't have done that.
You never do that to Alex, but when I host, it's fair game, huh?
I guess.
Just say, and Charles Hart is here, tallest guy in the room. How are you?
Large and in charge. That's not true. The large is true. The in charge is not true. I'm like the least in charge, but I'm around. Large and here.
There we go. Hierarchy by height is what I support. And we have a very special guest. If you're watching the video version, you may remember him. Former Game Informer editor, now narrative designer at Big Blue Sky Games, Serial Vasquez. Hello!
Hi! I'm actually kind of curious to see what the overlap is between the audience for this show then when I was at Game Informer and now. What percentage of people still remember who I am?
I mean, we also have a lot of overlap with MinMax, which is also formerly of MinMax. So if you want, we could do a little bit of a social experiment for the video version on YouTube. Please leave a comment saying if you do remember Serial, confirming that, yes, I do remember Serial. And you have to say it that formally, please.
Yeah, and where from, and what specific
give us your address, your email.
Yes, if you remember Serial, we'll give you a gift.
We'll give you a like on your comments. That's your gift.
Free likes? Wow.
There we go. Thank you for joining us, Serial. We got a big show ahead of us. We're going to be talking about WWE 2K24, the Outlast Trials. This is a weird name. Snufkin, Melody of Moominvalley, which I can't say without smiling. Sarah, you have a bunch of games you want to talk about, like a Dragon, Penny's Big Breakaway. We got some housekeeping. We've got listener questions. We got everything on this show. It is a jam-packed episode, and I figured we jump right into it, starting with, I guess, the biggest release of the week, and this is the Marcus Stewart Hour now, because it's all about wrestling.
Well, hold on, Marcus.
What?
Did you forget No Rest for the Wicked in that list?
Oh my God,
That's
Rest for the Wicked.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
Oh my God, you're absolutely right. In my defense, no one else brought it up either until now.
That's right. No, I mean, Marcus, you have been busy as hell. You're trying to play wrestling right now, but yeah, you also wrote a 12-page cover story on No Rest for the Wicked.
I sure did. I'm not gonna write it in the notes. Yes, No Rest for the Wicked. This was an interesting rollout because we announced our cover story for this game last Friday. It was actually a part of Moon Studios, is the developers of Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori and the Will of the Wisp. They had their big sort of what was it called, Wicked Inside, kind of like deep dive presentation breaking down what the game was. And then at the end of that, they basically revealed the cover for us.
That's cool.
Yeah, which was a really cool thing. So we didn't do like a traditional cover reveal the way we normally did because of that. And as you're listening to this now, the digital issue is now live, having launched on March 5th, this past Tuesday. And, we also had a preview build that had been sent out to press that Wesley and I streamed the last Friday right after Wicked Inside. And that's up on our YouTube channels. Wes did a written preview and an NGT for it. So it's been an interesting sort of rollout for that cover. But yeah, my brain is filled with so many other things that somehow I forgot the thing that I've been working on the most for the past month.
Yeah, no, I was telling you, Marcus, because it was unique for us, because usually we do the cover story, we go check out a game, we write about it, we have a lot of thoughts that we bring back. But in this instance, you were able to go, where'd you go again? Austria?
Vienna, Austria.
Vienna, Austria,
Which
yeah,
is,
and And you checked out the game, you wrote this huge cover story, and then when it was revealed, you were basically immediately able to go and play the game on a live stream and talk about it. You know what I mean? Like that's not typical for us, but it was also very cool.
Yeah, and it's a really cool game. Like, Wesley LeBlanc went with me to sort of handle the video side of it. We were there for a couple days. We visited the home / like studio / like sort of de facto headquarters of Moon. Thomas Mailer, his home, because they're an entirely remote studio. They don't have a home office. All their employees are kind of scattered all over the place. But so we met.
And they
up
were doing it before it was cool. They were like way ahead of that trend.
And by before it was cool, I mean before the world caught on fire and fell apart.
Yeah. And suddenly some things got very cool.
But yeah, we visited his home. We also, the Moon's other co-founder and CEO, Gennady Karol, joined us for that to walk us through the game. I got to play about an hour of it, pretty much like that beginning section. We filmed a couple of interviews that you're going to be seeing on our YouTube channel in the coming weeks. And yeah, if you haven't seen anything about this game, it was announced at the Game Awards last year. This is the kind of dark fantasy action RPG that basically, to like boil it down to its barest essentials, it takes like Diablo style sort of like top-down action, combining it with like the more deliberate and difficult combat of like a Souls game, and also adding like Animal Crossing style like town and home building all wrapped up into one, combined with like Moon's kind of like beautiful sense of like art direction. And it is a cool thing. From what I've gotten to play this a couple times now, and I mentioned before, like I love the Ori games to death, and to the point where like I would have been happy if they just said, hey, let's do Ori 3. But those games are so good that it was like, I would kind of like to see what else that studio is capable of. And so for them to go a hard pivot with this game, which they've been working on since, I believe, like not long after the first Ori came out. Like they said, they started prototyping it before they were working on the definitive edition of that game. And so they've been chipping away at this as sort of a passion project for a long time because, Mahler and Karol are big action RPG fans. For those that don't know, Mahler actually used to work at Blizzard for a long time. So Diablo 1 and 2 are like major inspirations for him. I think he said the name Diablo probably 247 times throughout our discussions because of how much of a fan he was. And also like so much of a fan where he's like, oh, I love this, and this about Diablo. But there's always been things like I've had a personal wish list of things I wish they would do in those games that they never did. So he basically went full Thanos and was like, well, I guess I'll do it myself. Like the idea of like, oh, it'd be cool if you could raise a town and have like a communal aspect with your friends where you're all building, you have this shared little world that you can like assume roles in to contribute, almost like Dungeons and Dragons style. It'd be cool if they did that. Like that's a big part of this game. So I guess for the initial like broad overview of the game is, it's like set in this dark fantasy world, and like I think the year's 841. There's this sort of like plague called the pestilence.
Wait, hold on, Marcus. I read your full cover story, I promise, but you say the year 841. Does it take place on Earth? Is that like the idea?
No, I don't think so. But it's
sure.
like they did specify the year for whatever reason. So.
And you remembered it.
Yeah.
The fictional year of this fictional world, which is a big deal.
It's good to know. Things were a lot better in 840. And then 841 rolled around, and it was like our pandemic, I guess.
Yeah,
it was
before everyone was working from home.
They sent everyone to work home in the medieval ages.
Yeah, but the idea is like this plague called the pestilence has like overtaken the land. It's like turning people into monsters called the Torn. Nobody knows what to do, and at the same time, the ruler of this land, King Hurl, has suddenly passed away, and his young son, who may or may not be the best person, has succeeded him and has his own way of like dealing with the plague, which involves enlisting the army of the church and basically commanding an inquisition who is led by this warrior Celine, who also seems a bit morally questionable. They kind of set their sights on this small island called Isola Sakura, which is the main world that the game takes place in is kind of considered like this backwater island. Nobody really cares about it, but for whatever reason, they're like, oh, actually, we might need to go here to help to go purge this problem. So their presence on the island is like somewhat unwelcome because it kind of could they clash with like the local government there, and the guy that runs the town is the brother of the now deceased king, so there's like some intrigue there. One of the things that struck me about the game, so we watched the cutscenes that if you watched Wicked Inside, you saw a bit of too, is how I guess for lack of a term, like Game of Thronesy it is, because if you play the Ori games, like one of those games don't have dialogue, it's all told through just sort of like body language and stuff. But this is like full voice acting, which from what we heard, it's some pretty strong performances. It's got a lot of political intrigue. The developers talked about how they want to tell like a very mature sort of tale where it's like there's no black and white really. Like some of these people have a little bit more morally gray. Like who can you really trust? What are they in it for? That kind of thing. So it's like it feels like sort of that like HBO prestige television style like medieval story they're going for.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting because I like up until you started mentioning that, I just imagined it as like a top-down Ori looking game that just happened to be like another genre. But this makes it sound like the one screenshot I've seen is like these people walking around. And there's like a giant key in the middle of the field. Is that correct?
Giant key? I don't know if I've seen that one.
Or maybe it's the right game. Maybe it's not the right game. But I remember like the art style looks like significantly different from the Ori games.
Definitely. It's got more of a like an oil painting kind of look. I think Wesley had a great sort of analogy in his preview where he said it looks like an oil painting that has started to melt. Because all the characters have like weird proportions.
It's really good though. It's really intriguing.
Yeah, like the game is very stylized in like its character design and in the animations as well. Like so like combat is like actiony. The animations and movements are very like exaggerated. I for whatever reason the comparison I have in my mind when I see the combat is Battletoads. When I think about like when you punch in Battletoads, how like their fists grow really big.
I never would have guessed the name Battletoads was going to come out of your mouth when you said the combat reminds me of blank.
It's like you'll do like a sword strike and it's just like really exaggerated. Like sometimes their like limbs do get bigger to sort of show like the weight and the power behind their strikes. But yeah, like in your character, you play like a customizable character. You name, gender, whatever. And you're a serum, which is more or less this, like you come from like this line of like chosen warriors that for whatever reason is predestined to counteract the pestilence. Like it's up to you to solve this problem. And, you wash up on this island and you pretty much get thrown in the middle of everything that is happening here between like the city of Sacrament, which is like the capital city of the island, and then the now arriving Inquisition from the new king, and getting caught up in their local politics and everything going off the pestilence. It's weird because like playing the combat, it is very much like if you're a Souls fan, and I am, it is very similar to that of like it's not as spammy and button mashy as something like a Diablo or a Path of Exile. It is very much like you have your weapons, and every weapon has like its own dedicated combo, almost like fighting game-esque. The inputs of like, oh, if I hit a few hits, pause, and another hit, it'll do like a specific sort of attack, kind of timing-based combos like that. You have special attacks tied to each weapon that you build a meter towards, and then you spin that meter to do the special attack, which is just like holding two inputs down. What's really interesting about this game is that there's no traditional character classes. It's all based on what weapon you wield, so every weapon you pick up has like changed your fighting style completely. So if you pick up daggers, you're more or less like a faster kind of like dexterity focused character where like, okay, you got quick strikes, your evade is kind of like this quick dash, but if you picked up a mace, you're suddenly a lot heavier and you're doing more traditional kind of slower like Dark Souls rolls. And since you can equip up to 3 weapons at once, you can switch on the fly and you're essentially changing your fighting style on the fly, which is really weird, and but it like works so far.
Okay.
And they wanted that because they. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, are there like character stats, or is it all in the gear?
It's there's character stats, so you're leveling up, and then you can only wield certain weapons if your stats sort of allow it. So it's like, oh, I can't wield this mace on like unless my, I don't know, your intelligence is to a certain level. And I like that their upgrade menu clearly communicates. So like when you upgrade a certain attribute, it will show you the weapon that you're making better. Like, oh, you're better with short swords now because you increase this stat. So it makes it really like, okay, I that is what I wanted. I'm glad that I can see that, you know. It's the world is gorgeous. It's got this really cool, unique camera angle that they were really proud of, where they basically, because they didn't want to just do a straight top-down overhead look like something like Diablo, they took Animal Crossing's sort of like globe perspective. If you play those games when you like run around and it just looks like you're on a curved landscape, they pretty much just took that and like flattened it a little bit so that you can see things on the horizon in a way that you normally can't in these kind of games. So it just gives it a like more depth to the presentation, while also allowing for a lot more verticality in the level design. Like you're going to be climbing upstairs. There's like platforming. You're going to be there's going to be enemies on towers that you're going to have to either reach or like snipe or do whatever you can. And it just also I think it just makes it look a lot more cinematic. Like it's like an isometric presentation, but it's like its own sort of isometric style, I guess, for lack of a better term. But it really works for that game. And if you're playing with multiplayer, which there is like 1 to 4 player co-op, which I'll get into it to a bit. They're saying like, oh yeah, like if you look on the horizon, you can see your friends in the background. If they're like off in distance, like fighting a boss or just doing whatever, you can see them just in real time doing their thing if you're like relatively nearby. And so that it just helps make the world feel a little bit more active. But yeah, I love how the combat feels. Like it's got that weighty, deliberate feel. You're not fighting mobs of enemies. It's a lot more intimate, where like maybe at most you're fighting 2 or 3 at a time, but they're all very challenging. Like, you know, it's about reading movements. You have a block, you have a parry that you can time to, you know, repel them and then go in for the kill. You're managing a stamina meter, of course. And it's like all those familiar tenets, but it just feels a little bit more fresher when you apply it to like, oh, what if it was like a Diablo-ish sort of game? But it works. Like if you watched our stream with what I did with Wesley last week, it's just it's so much fun, and the world is so much fun to poke around in because of how dense it is. Because it's not an open world per se, but it's like big and dense, where like there's a lot of secret paths you can find. There's a lot of like hidden nooks and crannies, and also they it changes every time you either revisit it or like maybe start a new game, where it's not procedurally generated like a lot of these games are. Like every environment is handcrafted, but what they did is that they handcrafted multiple versions of it, and then they have this system called Alive that pretty much just randomly picks one of those instances as this is what we're going to run with. So they're like, oh, if you go in this room the first time, it has like 3 enemies placed deliberately in a certain way, but the next time you go back, that room might have like a boss, or you go back and it has nothing. And the same applies to loot, where every chest changes no matter every time you go back. We're like, oh, the first chest you find in the game, you might find a sword, but the second time you go to that chest, it might be a mace or a piece of armor. And so that sort of like encourages like replayability, of course, but also to maybe backtrack a bit, because you're going to be visiting locations a lot, because you're going to be collecting ingredients, because there's like crafting systems involved, there's cooking, and then everything you find and grab, like Kyle, to use a term that you've coined, like this is somewhat of a punch trees to get wood game. Okay. But it's not like, it doesn't lean like hardcore into the survival aspect, but like you're not managing like food and thirst or anything like that.
And it's not a survival game, right? I mean, it is.
No.
A like medieval action game is like the primary genre, I guess. Right?
Yeah. Like that's how far into the survival it gets, of like, oh, you get an axe and you can cut down basically any tree you find, and then take that wood and then take it back to vendors in town to turn into armor or other stuff. And that's kind of where the city building aspect comes in. We're like, oh, once you get to the first town, you'll see it's in like disrepair and everyone's just kind of miserable. And, you know, you can take side quests from the town people, but also you can go to the architect there, and he'll be like, hey, you know, if you want to help me build up these shops, because if you do that, they'll get better inventory for you. So like the smithy, when you first meet him, he might only have like level 1 like upgrades, or improvements, but if you bring the right materials to the architect and help build his smithy, to level 2, then he's like, oh, I got some new stuff for you because, I got a better building to work in and all that stuff. And, the town visually changes too as you improve it. See, there's like a bunch of different vendors you can do that with. And then on top of that, you can also buy your own personal home. And this is like where the Animal Crossing stuff gets like super, like obvious where, you're decorating it.
Oh.
Yes, going into debt, of course. Actually, I actually don't know if you can or not, but
yeah, the phrase "no rest for the wicked" describes Tom Nook.
I would like to meet like this game's like Tom Nook equivalent because he's probably like the most miserable person.
Yeah, he's like the guy in Robin Hood collecting taxes, right? Like,
oh yeah, like a real snivelly guy.
Yeah,
they just call it House Nook. Yeah.
But yeah, you can buy like there's real estate. You can buy your own like house. This won't be available in early access, but like eventually they're gonna add an update that lets you have a farm along with your house. You can grow your own food and sell it and all that stuff. But you can buy a bunch of like furniture pieces, most of which is like functional because you can use it to store like extra consumables or display rare loot that you aren't using just as sort of like vanity pieces. And then basically a bunch of like little factories where you're like, hey, I got like a spinning wheel to turn this cloth into clothing, or I've got a smelter to melt ore into ingots that I can then take to this anvil and pound into new weapons. And like they have like there's like a wood machine basically, like, I'll take this raw wood and turn it into planks and then I can build stuff with that. You can have all of this in your home and just have all of them like operating autonomously while you're gone. And then when you're playing with friends, because the way co-op works is that when you make it like a server, it lives in the cloud, so there's no host necessarily. So even if you started the game, you don't need to be present for other friends to be in your worlds. So what's nice is that if you're playing with friends, you're like, I got a dip, you can just log off and it's not going to kick everyone. But then everyone in your world, again, you can only have up to 4. They can run around and basically do whatever they want. So they can go fight enemies, they can fight bosses, they can contribute to your town, or like, while you were gone, I chopped down some trees and I rebuilt the tavern and got it to like level 3, and then you come back and see like, oh man, you've been busy. Things are better. That's great.
Can they destroy things though? That's like, right? Is that the big question?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. Is that where your mind goes when you play with friends? Is how they ruin their time, Kyle? And you can also like play the whole story campaign together, of course, too, if you want to do that. Cool. A multiplayer that's coming in like I believe the first update when it goes into early access, which I don't think we mentioned this, but the game is launching in early access on April 18th. It's going to come together over time on Steam and then eventually release 1.0 on consoles. This is Moon's first time doing early access. If you read our cover story, and we have a video as well coming where they kind of talk about the reason they decided to go early access and how weird it was for them, because talking to them, and then also if you even just getting a sense of like how long it takes them to make games and how much work is in Aura games, they are very much a perfectionist, like in a way where like they are very like, we take our time, like we do not care how long something takes because we want to do it right. So the idea of putting out an inherently imperfect product and having everyone probably rip it apart if need be, and they talked about how like weird that was, but how they're willing to be vulnerable in that way because they recognize how many different ideas this game has and how ambitious it is, and that the best way to get it to where they want it to be is to let people in there and sort of help inform the direction. So, what's promising about this game is that it's already really fun as it is, but they've said that like everything you see here, we are not married to it. Like we will change anything in here if it just does not resonate with people, even if we think it's a cool idea. So that's I think that's a good attitude to have. So I'm excited. Like there's some parts in here where I'm just like, I hope this kind of stays because I think it's cool. But I guess we'll see what the mass public thinks. But yeah, man, it's fun. Wes and I both said this on the stream. We're like, both of us are kind of the people where we don't normally play early access games because I'm kind of the person that would rather just wait for it to be done to play it, and that's more be like, I don't want to burn myself on it out to where by the time it comes out, I'm like, I've already put like, sure. Yeah, like there's been few exceptions, but a lot of those exceptions are more like for work reasons, right? But I think this is going to be the first one where it's like, I think I'll be following this game like on my personal time, because I was like, Like, they deactivated the press build yesterday, and I was like sad that I can't get back in and play it. I was
That's a
like,
good sign,
oh,
yeah.
it's gone. Okay, I guess I have to wait. But yeah, I'm pumped up for it. What do you guys think? Have you, Sarah, have you had a chance to like keep a close eye on it at all, or are you a Moon Studios fan in general? What do you think of this?
Yeah, I like both of the Ori games, and I've been seeing the covers that you guys are showing, but I guess I haven't been keeping a close enough eye because the thing that I mistook, one of the screenshots was that I thought was a giant key is actually just like the edges of a gate, and you're walking around across a narrow bridge, and I just scrolling through Twitter, I thought it was a giant key. So, but everything I've seen of it looks pretty cool. I really like the cover art that they showed, and I feel like it's pretty true to what the game actually is. But yeah, I like the idea of I know like 2D Dark Souls-esque games are very common, or like it's a very common way to talk about games, but I feel like from what I've seen, it definitely feels like it is very much inspired by that. So yeah, it looks pretty cool. I'm into it.
Yeah, shout out to our cover, by the way. It's like a recent favorite for me. That it's just this like beast and this character just sort of standing in front of it. Like, it's very much that like first encounter with an insane boss that you're like, well, I'm gonna be fighting this boss for a couple hours. This is not gonna be a first try situation.
It's like that one meme where it's like the giant, like it's like a giant knight holding like a sword in front of him,
Right,
and then
yeah.
there's like a tiny knight in front of it. It's like, yeah, that's the vibe it gets.
Yeah, it's cool.
Like looking at the art, it feels like that kind of boss would feel more Soulsian than like something in like Diablo where they want to show you the whole thing. So all of the bosses kind of look like small versions of themselves, you know, like the scale feels a little bit off sometimes. Whereas it feels like if you're fighting a giant enemy in this, you may not even see its head in gameplay, right? It feels like that kind of thing where it could, you know, emulate the I forget what their name is, but the night fight in at top of Sen's Fortress, where you're basically just, you know, lopping at its legs for 5 minutes or whatever until it falls over, but you don't see like the whole thing because it's so big. That's what like this art style feels like it's going to be more of versus like isometric, even though it is kind of top down, right?
Yeah, 100%. That first fight, actually, we've shown off a Warwick the Torn. It is like this like huge mutated soldier. He's got like weird crab legs and just like basically a spine, like an elongated spine for like a torso. He looks like a Resident Evil monstrosity a little bit in that way. But yeah, it because of the and this is something actually the co-founders called out. We're like, oh, that isometric perspective makes it so like you don't have to worry about the camera the way you do in like a traditional Souls game, where like you are kind of sometimes just hacking at legs and then trying to keep them in sight so you don't get blindsided. But because of the camera angle, you just see them all there, so you can just focus on like, okay, I see where they're gonna jump. I could take that part of the equation now and just focus on just executing on what I can see, which is everything. And that first fight was a lot of fun. Not to brag, but beat on my second try. Because I'm, pro gamer and stuff. Would have been first.
Yeah,
try
when I
on
was
the
talking about
Steam,
like, I'm gonna have to fight this boss multiple times. I was referring to myself. I wasn't referring to Marcus.
Yeah, please don't refer to me. Don't keep my name out of your mouth, No. So yeah, like I said, that was a good boss. I want to see how the other ones look. But yeah, I'm pumped for this game. So yeah, keep an eye on the site over the coming weeks for some other cool features for that. Rolling out in our exclusive coverage hub, and again, our digital issue is now live, and print subscribers should expect to see that come in their mailbox in the coming weeks. But to move on, since I was going to jump into WWE, but I've also talked a lot, so I'm going to pass the baton a bit to you, Charles, because you've been playing some Pacific Drive, and you also wrote a really cool feature last week on the site about what it was like to play that game while also learning how to drive in real life. And I have not had a chance to fire this up yet, but I really want to get to it. So I would love to know, first, just if you want to elaborate on that feature, feel free. And also just give your overall thoughts on the game so far.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, as I was writing this feature, I was thinking, like, I kind of have a reputation for being, like, the young one. And now it's like, oh, this kid doesn't even know how to drive. He must be, like, what, 16? But no, so Game Pacific Drive, if you're unfamiliar, it's like this weird apocalyptic game. It's kind of like a survival game, because as you're going through this world, you have a car, and you're getting ingredients and materials to like craft upgrades and like maintenance stuff for your car. So if you
it's like a
crash,
station wagon, right?
Yeah. So if like you crash into a wall, then your bumper is going to be damaged, and you got to like craft a new bumper or get some like repair stuff for that. If you're like, and then in order to do that, you got to take like your scrapper, which is this big like saw blade thing, and break apart like other cars that are like abandoned on the side of the road. So yeah, it's a cool game. And as I was playing it, I recently started learning to drive. I started doing it in high school, and then I didn't vibe with it. I think the reason is because my dad was very insistent on me learning on a stick shift. And
I like saying you didn't vibe with it.
I didn't, dude. I didn't like it.
Didn't vibe with transportation.
About having
Not for me.
I get that though. I started with an automatic, and then a couple years later I learned how to drive stick after I got the basics. And it's like one of those weird life skills that I'm happy I have. I know how to drive a stick shift. That's great for me.
Is it better? Like Sarah, do you know
fun.
how to drive sticks? I don't know how to drive stick either. And
I don't know how to drive stick.
okay,
And
I
think it's
fun.
affected.
It
It
feels
has
more
affected
weird.
my life all of once. Where there was like this rental car that you would like better when you're going to use it. You can't. Like I can't drive stick shift, so you're gonna have to pick a different car. That's the extent. It's like when they teach you like cursive, and it's like you're gonna use it like once a week to sign something. Otherwise, don't worry about the skill whatsoever. It's entirely pointless.
Well, I like it because I don't own a stick shift right now, but when I do, I felt like my car was like 10% less likely to get stolen. You know, like that's
Sure.
But all that to say, Charles,
can't drive this.
all that to say is I get it. It would be hard to start driving on a stick shift. I totally get that.
I think my dad's point of view was like, well, if you learn on a stick shift, then you can drive any car, kind of in the way of like, if you beat the game on the hardest difficulty, then you've beat it on every difficulty. Not thinking like, someone probably needs to play on easy mode first. In order to
He was
learn.
trying to get you an achievement.
Also, like, learning a stick, I think there's the generational thing of, he's like, if you learn a stick, that's like a type of car that some people have, but most are automatic, but it's nice for that kind of car. I feel like nowadays the equivalent of that is like, this car is going to have gas. You're going to learn on a gas car. A lot of the cars are just going to get charged in the future. That's okay. Anyways, Pacific Drive, gas car, automatic.
That's a major mechanic, yeah. You gotta fill up the gas tank, yeah.
So yeah, I was playing it. The thing that's interesting about Pacific Drive is it forces you into a first-person driving perspective. And every time I've played video games before this, if I went to first person, I would immediately change the camera view to third person. And the interesting thing about that is, like, in a video game, that doesn't really make it that you're driving the car. It makes it so you're, like, playing as the car. Like, you are not a person piloting a vehicle. You just are a person piloting on a controller the vehicle. So in this game, you are in first person and in the car, and there's just like a few things that you do that make it really like you are driving the car. You have to like look at the ignition to start the car. You have to look at the gear shift to change it from park to drive. If you're like on a hill, you got to turn it in park, or else your car's gonna roll away and get destroyed. And like stuff like that. You have to use the mirrors. So it was just really interesting. So I wrote a little piece about how I was learning to drive, and Pacific Drive was helping. Another thing about it is, as you craft upgrades for it, I was like seeing where on the car like certain things went, and I was like, oh, it didn't occur to me. The thing I wrote about was a handbrake. Like, you put the handbrake in and you see like little transparent thing over the car of like, oh, this goes down in the bottom, and you can see like the lines connecting it to the wheels. And I don't know what I thought it was, to be honest. I just was like, I don't know. I didn't think it looked like that. And as I was writing this, I was like, people are going to think I'm so stupid.
Oh, man.
I'm not a car guy either.
Yeah.
No.
So, as far as I'm concerned with especially contemporary cars, I'm just like, it's all computers at this point, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm just loading at the brake application when I tap the brake. Is that what I'm doing?
Yeah. I feel like that's the skill that you're not going to need is like, I like the idea of a car game that teaches you how to like take care of something yourself, of like, okay, if something happens, I can swap out the parts or change tires. But yeah, now electric cars are all like, there are these basically closed off systems that you basically have to go to the manufacturer to repair. So it's teaching you a life skill that you probably won't use unless you buy an older car.
Yeah. So I wrote a little bit about that. The game itself, I do like but I considered we were gonna have Alex. He's the one that like knows a lot of this game. I considered cutting it because I actually haven't played that much. Because ironically, the thing I like about it, the first-person car mechanic, gives me a huge issue with it in that it makes me incredibly motion sick. I don't know exactly how to solve it. This is also a thing that just happens to me sometimes in games, especially if I have to play it on a PC, which is like I'm not used to. I just get so much more motion sick, and the way that you are as a character stationary, me in real life am stationary, but then the thing you're in is moving is just like a recipe for nausea for me.
Do you what games in the past have given you motion sickness? Is it like specific first person shooters or?
No, it's never shooters.
I remember you brought up the Talos Principle 2 until I told you there was a third person option,
which I never tried out, but that would definitely help. I have gotten it with Portal. Extremely weird one I've never seen anyone else mention. I get it with Nier Automata.
Weird.
Can't play that game. Yeah, it's super weird.
But
I might want to try again sometime. But there was a thing where like I had like 4 or 5 days in a row. I was like, I'm going to try this again. I just like the way the camera moves, it kind of like swivels, I think. Like it speeds up and slows down depending on how you move it.
Are you
so it's more of a camera thing?
Yeah.
Perspective thing?
Just when I'm moving the camera, yeah.
And I was going to helpfully ask if you were just disgusted by artificial intelligence and just couldn't.
Those 2 games specifically?
Yeah.
The other one makes more sense is Gravity Rush. I had a hard time with.
Oh, God.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then I want to say it didn't the most recent time I did it, but BioShock 1 I tried playing. I think it was the lighting in that one. Like it's very dark in the beginning and that I don't know. It's weird. It comes up at like very random times for me and it bothers me every time it does because I don't want there to be like another barrier to me playing games. But
yeah, I think with BioShock it's actually somewhat more common because I think the field of view in that game, if you're playing it on console especially, can be really tight. And I think some people benefit from like field of view sliders. If they make the view wider, then it actually helps them orient themselves better. I don't know if you have any experience with like changing the field of view in games.
I usually try to. I think it's helped before. It's also a PC thing. I don't know if it's like a distance from the screen to my face. It's not a way I grew up playing games. So if there's like a first person thing there, that's like a hard thing for me. But
yeah, no, that's too bad. But otherwise, I mean, I've played a bit of Pacific Drive too. I don't think I've played much more than you, Charles. But it is like we've talked about it a couple times on the show. It's a really weird premise, and like the sort of having ownership over that car like really comes through strong for that game. Like that's like it's such a cliche to be like, you know, it's a character, but the car is a character. You know, like it really, you feel close to that car very quickly, which is cool. I'm glad that it's cool that they were able to pull that off. Have
you named your car? Like, you know, like some hardcore people with their cars that are like, you know, have you gotten to that level of I don't know, making your car a character?
I'll name my car
The Sickness.
Oh, that's great.
But it means like the sickness, like
yeah, dude.
You know, meaning.
Yeah, I love that. There you go.
This car is sick. It also makes me sick.
Oh, see, I was gonna say it makes anyone like the enemy sick because like don't cross me, or we're gonna make you sick. You know,
right.
Or it's like a Batman thing, right? Like you conquer your fear by becoming it.
There you go.
You do. You have to dress up like motion sickness, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, maybe I'll call it Dramamine as a way to like trick myself. To be like, this is making me feel better. Actually, this car.
Yeah, just shout "swear to me" into the hood, into the open hood.
Oh yes, please. I still say that's maybe the top 2 coldest things Batman has ever said. Just say.
What's the other one?
I don't know. I am the knight or something.
Look both ways before you cross the street. It's a pedestrian thing, but
the signal didn't change.
Make sure you always use your turn signal.
I've grown to quite adore Teen Titans Go, a show that my first encounter with it really turned me off, and I slowly grew more and more to like it over time. But the thing that arguably made me fall in love with Teen Titans Go is there's a scene where the characters are in a library, and in the background there's just a poster, and it's got Batman's face, and it says "Swear to read."
Oh, I remember that. I
And
too
was
am a
like,
fan.
oh my god, I want that poster. Just Batman's face saying "Swear to read."
Is that licensed? Is Batman getting paid for that? Is that a partnership he did with the library?
I mean, I don't know. He's Robbins in
They
there.
probably
It's all
do
the same
volunteer
stuff.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, technically his whole deal is volunteer work. He's not getting paid to be Batman.
He's losing money on being Batman.
Yeah, technically. Yeah.
It's a loss leader for him.
Kyle, please walk all of the lovely listeners through. What is Snufkin? Snufkin, right?
Yeah.
Melody of Moominvalley. What?
Yeah, this is not a game we need to spend a lot of time on, to be clear. Not because I think it's like a bad game or anything, but Charles sat in with me on new gameplay today, and it's just this like weird life experience thing that I've been having, where there's this character from, I think is the 40s. It's this Finnish
The
author.
1940s, you mean?
Yeah. Tove Jansson, I think is the name, wrote this series of books and comic strips called Moomin, and they have remained popular in places like Finland and Japan. Japan really loves Moomin.
Wait, Japan and Finland.
Yeah, they made an anime, like a Japanese studio animated a Moomin anime that is still quite known and quite popular. Like many years ago. There's like Moomin theme parks around the world. I think there's one in Japan actually. And like the only reason I'd ever heard of Moomin was because I went to Finland for the Quantum Break cover story like 6 or 7 years ago, and the folks at Remedy were like, they explained to me what Moomin was, because I was like, I see this character everywhere. What is this thing? And they're like, oh, you don't know Moomin? Moomin's like an important cultural character here in Finland. Like he's our Mickey Mouse, you know? And so I didn't really think of Moomin much after that, but then like recently, like this last year or two, my kid has sort of become enamored with Moomin, and like I bought her a bunch of books, like Moomin books and stuff. And then I went to Thailand for vacation like a year ago now at this point, and I saw Moomin stickers on the notebooks of the hotel staff of the hotel we were staying at. and then this game got announced, Snufkin, Melody of Moominvalley, based on the Moomin property, where you play as like Snufkin's like a secondary character in the world of Moomin.
So, yeah, I was going to say, like, because I've seen this game, and I see on the cover art, there's like a dude with like a hat, and then
That's
there's like
Snufkin, yeah.
Okay, that's not Moomin. Moomin's the
not
white, like, what is it, like a hippo-looking thing?
He's a fantasy, like he's a troll. He's a Moomin troll. He's like a fantasy creation. But he is kind of based on a hippo. He's meant to be like a lovable little hippo, and there's like a whole family of creatures like Moomin.
Okay.
Moomin Papa, Moomin Mama. We all know these characters.
We all know those.
Right, the bloodline of Moomin. Yes.
Yeah.
But it's always been like there's movies and TV shows and books, and it's always been just a pleasant as hell sort of property about this like really pleasant little character and the little adventures that they go on with his family and stuff like that. And that's what this game very much is. It's like pleasant as hell. It is the most pleasant ass game I've played in a while, where you're just kind of walking around this lovely nature environment with lovely music, and there's creatures that walk up to you and they want to be friends, and you play harmonica for them. But I just I put it on the list of things to talk about just because like Moomin is slowly infecting my life in a weird way, and I suspect in like a year, like Moomin's gonna be huge. Like everyone's gonna be talking about Moomin. You know, this old comic strip from the 40s.
Well, it's funny you say that, Kyle, because I feel like my biggest exposure to Moomin is people who have Moomin as like their profile picture on social media, things like Twitter or Instagram. I feel like he's a fairly common one that I see of just like prominent people with a lot of followers who have like a Moomin avatar or something.
But like more and more.
And then you look it up,
right?
yeah.
Like there's going to be a live action Netflix adaptation soon, you know.
Wait,
yes,
is that true?
buy Moomin stock today.
Yes,
I mean, yeah.
That's
going
what
all
I'm
in on
talking about.
Moomin.
Buy in Moomin now. Now is buy.
Publicly traded Moomin. That's what I'm all about. That's so weird to hear you two say that, because like before this game was announced, I had never heard any like an inkling of this. I've not seen the profile pictures of the hippo thing or anything like that. Like, this is entirely like new to me. So I guess for whatever reason, I've just dodged the growing Moomin movement. Is that what I want to call it?
I was gonna say, Mark.
Wait, what?
Uh-oh.
Sorry,
Getting a phone call.
it's Matt Miller. I guess our website's
That was a
called
quick call.
Moominformer now. that was a weird phone call. I just wanted to let you guys know that before.
That
we
was a
can-
weird phone. It's
we
weird
can
that he
cut
only
that
called
part
you
out.
and
I'm
not
surprised
the
that he
rest of
called
us.
you. Yeah.
It's weird. What was
really
super
needed
is
to
if
let
you
you
could
know.
see the video of my phone, it kind of looked like my home screen when I was answering it. But yeah.
Also, as a former Game Informer editor, there's no way that a call with Matt Miller lasts that little time.
That's a great point.
Matt has like multiple times in the past week used the word blather to describe his own speech. And I think that's so funny, and I keep picturing him now as like Blathers the owl from Animal Crossing.
Oh, he's totally black.
which, to be clear, all of my conversations with Matt Miller have been incredibly pleasant. He's an incredibly smart person.
Yes,
But I feel like he would introduce himself
Moominvalley,
first.
the video game, as a person.
he is
pleasant.
real life
Yeah.
Moomin. He is
Yeah.
Matt Moomin is what we should call him.
Yeah, he just called me. He
Yeah.
said, "Game Informer is now Moominformer. Spread the word," and hung up. I didn't get to say anything
Spread
in
the word.
response.
It wasn't a question. It was
your
a
job. Yeah. I feel like he would introduce himself first, apologize for interrupting your day, and he would be like, "I hope you're doing really well. I'm really proud of all the work you've been doing. And listen, I wanted to talk." Like, he would have this entire spiel, and then like, anyway, that was he would have like an epilogue to his call to you, and you would feel better about your day by the end of it. Like, I'm
It's
really
true.
glad you
Yeah.
talked to me
Absolutely.
today.
Yeah.
To be
We
clear,
love you, Matt.
blather on, Matt. We love it when you blather.
Yeah, it's great blathers, like the owl. I want to hear everything he has to say.
Never skip that dialogue.
God.
Anyway, Moomin, or was it Snufkin? Melody of Moominvalley, very pleasant game, and just get ready for Moomin fever. I don't know what you need to do to get ready for that, but it's coming. Moomin is coming.
Wait, hold on. But then it's like, this is like if finally this new area is getting Mickey Mouse in the form of a Donald Duck game, because Snufkin is like a side character,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
That's
Yeah,
true.
it's weird. Yeah.
So wait,
Yeah, that's
when
very
does
strange.
Moomin become public domain? Has that not happened yet?
No, I don't think so. I think they're trying.
Or
to
does
get
it have to be an
beforehand.
American creation to do that? Actually,
Oh yeah, that's American
Global
copyright law.
trademark
Yeah,
law?
I guess.
I don't know.
I'm gonna say, when can I start printing my like airbrushed Moomin T-shirts at the flea market and sell them?
Soon.
Yes. All right.
So it's gonna,
Yes.
so it's gonna be like a Peanuts situation where it's like the Peanuts are like the characters that everyone knows, but then like the mascot here is Snoopy, or like in Japan it's Snoopy. All anyone cares about in Japan is Snoopy.
Yeah.
The rest of the characters, or well, I guess Woodstock also, but the rest of the Charlie Brown characters not really relevant in Japan, but Snoopy is basically like an honorary mascot there.
Yeah. And we're taking Snufkin for some reason. That's the one we've chosen.
Weird side note, but when I was a kid, because I love Snoopy so much, I used to think that Red Bear in the pizza was referencing Snoopy Red Bear, and even though there's clearly like a human man on the logo, I was like, that was my first introduction to the phrase Red Baron was him. So I was like, oh, Snoopy has his own pizza, even though he is not represented at all on this box.
Yeah. Yeah, I just thought that little dog was like the pilot with the most confirmed kills in World War One. Was my confusion.
Most confirmed kill Snoopy is what they call him. Okay, I guess now we can dive into the ring, if you'll allow me to blather a bit about
an equally pleasant game, I assume, right?
an equally pleasant sport, as long as you don't watch the news. Wrestling, specifically WWE 2K24. Before I get into this, Kyle and Serial, I know very well what your wrestling sort of like fandom is. Serial, where are you at with WWE? I'm curious. Have you ever watched wrestling, or did you used to be a fan? Like,
I watched. As like a kid, I watched like because I'm I'm Mexican, so like I watched Lucha Libre when I was a kid, and I really liked a lot of that. And then I think on the American side, I haven't watched a ton of it. I watched Lucha Underground for a while.
oh yes, rest in peace, Lucha Underground.
Yeah, and then from there, I have basically just been inundated with like wrestling coverage. on like social media and stuff. But it's kind of like sports in that I will read a really good like piece of reported writing on wrestling or watch a documentary about wrestling more than I would actually watch wrestling. So I know some bits of it, but never been like a longtime fan of WWE, for example.
Did you go watch the Iron Claw, the movie? With
I
Zac
did.
Efron?
I really like that. I had no idea what any of the things they were doing were referencing, but I enjoyed that movie.
Heck
Another pleasant piece of media. Right? The Iron Claw, from what I know about it.
The Snufkin of the wrestling industry, as we have fans call it. These poor brothers. Yes. So yes, WWE 2K24. At the time you're listening to this, out tomorrow. Though, if you bought the the WrestleMania edition or the whatever they call it, the digital deluxe edition, it's out now already, like early access and stuff like that. I have been playing it, but hopefully my review will be up soon. We'll see. But the thing about these games is that they are deceptively long to get through. I think no one else in games media outside of wrestling fans know what it's like to review one of these games. They have so many modes, and all of them require like at least a few hours each to like get a sense of what they did to it compared to last year's iteration, where like a lot of it is like the same. Like I'd say like for the most part, with some exceptions, like 90% of it is like, yeah, this is what they did last year, which in some cases is good. Of like, okay, they didn't like break this. But then they'll add like one or two things where like, oh, okay, this changes things somewhat. So, like the big thing with this year is because WrestleMania 40 is coming up, big milestone show. So the showcase mode, which in the 2K games has always been sort of the playable documentary mode, where it's usually focused on one wrestler. Like last year was following John Cena's career through his biggest losses. So you just played a bunch of like matches where you beat John Cena over and over, and then they would just cut to footage of him in a studio talking about like, yeah, I got beat by this guy. This is what it did to me, and this is how good that person was, and stuff like that. The production on those modes are usually really great because WWE's production team is really great for like their video packages and like their archival footage. This is no exception, where they've selected, I believe, 21 matches throughout WrestleMania's history, like the most iconic bouts that feature people that we can legally use or morally use. Like, let's just say you won't be playing as Brock Lesnar in this game. If you've been keeping up the news, you know why. But it's like, outside of that, I think the selection from what I've seen so far is like, it's good. It's like the usual suspects of like, yeah, Hogan versus Andre at WrestleMania 3, and the Mega Powers explode at WrestleMania 5, or even like most recently last year's WrestleMania has like 3 matches of like, oh yeah, the main event, Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. Yeah, that's cool. And, it's the same thing you've done in the previous years of like, you replay the matches, you've got a list of objectives, like historical objectives, where you can either just win the match on your own, or you can do the objectives, which basically you basically recreate the match of like, oh yeah, do this slam at this time, because that's what happened in the real match. Like, throw him in the corner, and then if you do that, it'll transition from the in-game gameplay to the real-life footage of the match at that point, which is still like a cool thing. They've done it a bunch of times, but I never get tired of seeing that seamless switch to like, oh, I threw a guy in the ropes, and then here's the footage of them going into the ropes, and then you watch the match for like a minute or so, and then it transitions back to the game.
And also, just from watching, I was on like a new gameplay today, despite not being a big wrestling fan.
But now you are.
Now I am. I'm the biggest fan in the office. I'm coming after Marcus. But I actually, the switching back and forth between the live action stuff and like the gameplay stuff, for me, actually made me appreciate like how good the visuals are. Like, like to put them side by side by that, sometimes that's dangerous. Sometimes you're kind of like, we probably shouldn't compare it to real life, because then you'll see all the issues. And obviously it's not, you can still discern, I'm not saying they broke the, what is it called? The Uncanny Valley.
Uncanny Valley. Yeah.
But like, it's impressive. It's like just a means to be like, oh, this game actually looks pretty good. I'm impressed.
Yeah, and it still looks pretty good. Like, I haven't seen every superstar yet, because guys, there's like over 200 wrestlers available like out the box, which is awesome and also insane. Like the roster in real life is huge, so to see it largely represented here on top of like, like alumni and legends and stuff like that, is like the wrestlers I have seen. I've yet to see one where I was just like, oh man, they missed the mark. Like that does not look like that person or anything like that.
That's good.
So that's good too. But yeah, Showcase I'm enjoying so far. It's not dramatically different than what's been done, but that's usually probably my favorite destination in these games. So to kind of change it up and focus more on like there's an event rather than a person is like that in itself is a nice change of pace with WrestleMania 40 coming up. They've got My Rise, which is sort of like the single player story campaign. There's two, as there have been in different years, like each completely different stories, and they're all like choice driven narratives. So they encourage you to replay it a bunch of times. You're going to be making all these decisions that steer the story. The one that I've played the most so far is called Undisputed, and it centers on Roman Reigns vacating the WWE title, which, for you guys don't know, but Roman Reigns is the current champion, and he has been for over 3 years now, like straight. Like he has not lost it in over 3 years, which is unheard of since the early 80s. And so the idea is like, oh, what if he just like voluntarily vacated it because he wanted to go to Hollywood? Which in my fan mind, as someone that has been very invested in this title reign and how he loses it, is like deeply upsetting to me that it would end with no one beating him, and he just says, I'm done. I'm just gonna vacate this.
Too good.
Yeah.
Like I was like,
So you follow the Hollywood side of that, right? You follow Roman Reigns as he starts doing roles in movies and such?
No, you play as a loser. You play as a loser guy on the roster. Like basically the idea is like, oh, you've been signed for like 2 years, but your win-loss record is kind of like you're pretty much like low on the card. But then you get thrust into this tournament to crown the new champion, and through some shenanigans, you win it. But it's like very much by fluke. So you're kind of a paper champion, basically, of like nobody buys you. For my wrestling fans out there, I'm speaking to you directly. You can touch the camera, feel my energy. Think of Jinder Mahal's title reign, and that's basically you. Like you're Jinder Mahal. For context, Jinder Mahal was a guy that was a loser and then became world champion out of the blue like a few years ago, and his title reign was awful because we were suddenly asked to believe that he was a credible world champion. Where it's like, but he hasn't won a match in years. Like,
Marcus, I'm sorry I don't like wrestling more for your sake.
You should be.
Yeah.
I feel like it reminds
You
me of
should
like
be.
I'm not a big sports fan, but my dad like loves baseball, and like I try my best to like be into baseball for his sake, but I just never. It's like I just can't do it, and I feel bad. I'm sorry. That's how I feel now. I'm sorry that I don't know what you're talking about.
No, don't apologize. Hey, don't apologize. It's fine.
I mean, apparently it also provides you like telepathic abilities that you can contact them through video.
That is pretty cool.
Like Marcus did earlier. So
Yeah,
that's maybe another reason to get into wrestling.
You got to watch for a few years before you unlock that tier of power, but you'll get there. But yeah, like that is all to say that I am enjoying the story mode right now. I like the where the narrative's going. I like the choice-driven stuff. It's not like super different than what they did last year, but at least the story that's being told, I think I'm enjoying more than the what was it last year where you played as the Lock or whatever it was, where you were like this indie star that got signed and they basically repackage you and take away everything that made you big on the indies and say this is what you're going to be now, and then you kind of have to grapple with like, is that good? Do I want to do that? The other storyline that I haven't really gotten into as much, where you play as like a indie star with your own indie company, and then WWE comes to town and you're kind of choosing whether you want to go to WWE or run your little indie thing. I haven't played enough of that to sort of like give a fair assessment of it, but if nothing else, I like how vastly different each narrative is, and each one probably takes like 4 or 5 hours to get through if you like mainlined it, maybe less. So I think I'm getting towards the end of the first one and dive into the second one. But the other, like the usual suspects, like my GM, universe mode, faction mode, like it's all there with their own sort of like new twist. The new match types are like the ambulance match that you and I, Kyle, did the video on, the casket match, special guest referee, which they all occupy the same umbrella of they are fine.
Okay.
They are just fine. Like in real life, that's kind of how I feel about all of those match types too. Where like when they get announced, I'm like, okay, it depends on the story being told, but otherwise, I'm like, they're not like the most exciting stipulations in my opinion, and that kind of translates to the game. Like, oh yeah, it's like it's nice to have them to sort of complete the feature set, but am I going to be rushing to play an ambulance match? Like, no, not at all. But they work.
The series has been like there was a real low period, right? It's been going up, right? Like I said, we're still on an upward trajectory. You feel for the series in general?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm still very much playing the game, so I haven't fully formed my my opinions of it. But the thing I can say for now, it doesn't feel like a regression. You know, like you mentioned, the sort of like the breaking point for that series was 2K20, which was 2019's game, which was famously awful. Like it just did not work at launch. It just had a litany of like Assassin's Creed Unity level glitches of just like faces and just people exploding basically.
Yeah.
Still probably the meanest review I ever wrote was for that game when I was back at Screen Rant. And, they took the years off break. The Ukes, who was the longtime developer of WWE games, split off midway through that game's development, which probably explains why it turned out the way it did. And then Visual Concepts, who always worked on it, like, partly, but now they are, like, the sole developer in these games. They have taken the mantle, and then they took the couple years off during the pandemic, and then came back in 2022? Yeah, 2022. So this is the third game since basically a soft reboot of the franchise, and they've all been good. Like I've reviewed the last two. I've enjoyed all of them. I'm enjoying this for now for basically the same reasons. Again, there hasn't been that one standout like, whoa, I can't believe they did this, but it's more like, yeah, this is still fun, which is still nice because for a long time WWE games were not fun. They were actively bad, I would say, in my opinion. Yeah, they were kind of terrible. And to still be like, all right, we're maintaining that status quo so far with some like neat twists, and of course an updated roster is always nice. So yeah, I'd say overall I'm like pleased with it. So yeah,
good.
That's WWE 2K24. Keep an eye out for my full review coming soon, and I will release you guys from the steel cage of wrestling. You guys can go out and play now.
Thank you.
Yes. Serial, I'm going to turn it to you because you have a few games that you've been checking in on. So I'm just going to let you go wild. Just talk to us what you've been playing recently. What's sort of gotten you excited this year?
I've been playing a lot of old games recently, but for when it comes to like 2024 games, I've been playing a lot of Yakuza Infinite, or Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth.
Yeah, what's Yakuza?
They changed that.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't. Yeah, I just my mind blanked for a moment there. But I've been playing that, and that's been very soothing almost because I played all of the previous game, and it felt like it was fun to finally get to the point where I think longtime fans are, where they see these games as like, okay, I'm finally back here. And then, because like I feel like a lot of the appeal of the Like a Dragon series was coming back to Kamurocho and seeing it and, revisiting with these characters and such. And then Ichiban was like okay, we're kind of wiping the slate for the most part and introducing you to a new character and having him go on a, different adventure in a different city. And then now getting that revisitation of like, I remember Adachi, or like, I remember these like, and then they do thrust you into like a totally different environment in Hawaii, right? And I think that has been my favorite part of it, is the combination of, okay, I'm familiar with this character, but he's in a totally different world, and like the fact that I haven't played 3, 4, and 5, but I think this is like the first one that takes place anywhere outside of Japan.
Yes,
but I might be right. So like the conversion of all of your yen turning into dollars, having that kind of more solid understanding of like, I gained $30 from beating the crap out of these guys is like more amusing. And then like all the mini games and stuff, which I usually am not like a mini game person. I don't usually get sucked into like, I got to do the side content and get really like into stuff like that. But I was just introduced to the delivery game mini game where you're riding a bike around town. Yes, the Crazy Eats, which is perfect. Like the guy who introduces it to you, and the fact that you're like doing these combos in the in the air and stuff. All that stuff I think I've been really enjoying, and it like the combat is pretty much the same, but I like kind of the tweaks they've made to it where you can control your positioning more, which was kind of my big gripe with the combat before, where it's like you couldn't move around. So like they had all these abilities that had like areas where they were effective, but you were kind of either waiting for people to kind of line up correctly, or you were just kind of relying on luck completely. So the idea of okay, now you can kind of move so that you have these proximity bonuses, or that so your AoE can actually line up stuff. I thought that all has been like really smart, and a lot of the storylines I'm pretty into, but I'm still really early. I think I'm on to like chapter 4, so there's still a lot of like
you barely started.
Yeah, you're actually I think same chapter as me. I think last time I played was when we did the Segway video, Kyle. I think that was like end of chapter 4.
I only recently got the Segway, which is very funny because the guy can't stop those things from exploding, and then he was like, "Here's one. Good luck with it."
Charles, have you played Infinite Wealth yet, or not yet?
No, I haven't touched the series.
Okay.
Honestly, at a point in the spring where I was like, I gotta choose something to not engage with. There's so much going on. I have to actively be like, I'm not gonna do this one. One day I'm gonna sit down and play all these games because I think I would like them a lot, but I have not.
I'm sorry, sir. I didn't want to. I cut you off there a little bit, but Marcus, you've met Tomizawa, right?
Oh yeah, he's in my party.
I told Serial this. I feel like you look like Tomizawa. I think it's just like mainly the facial hair and the glasses.
Oh, you're saying he though? I thought you were saying I look like Tomizawa.
No, you don't look like Tomizawa.
What?
But I don't know. Am I crazy? I put Tomizawa in the video version. He's like he's sitting next to you in your office, Serial. And I'm curious if maybe I'm just crazy, or if you guys think he kind of looks like Tomizawa.
I mean, I think Serial has much more facial hair.
Yeah,
I hope you don't mind us like talking about your appearance in front of you, Serial. If you put on a Hawaiian shirt,
you do wear Hawaiian shirts all the time. That's kind of. I'm surprised you weren't wearing one today.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's not the season for it yet, but it's coming.
Yeah, can you pull out a car battery and do this with the jumper cables, like rub them together? And then...
I mean, I could. I don't know if I can get it. I don't think it would work, but
I mean, you
I
won't
don't have car batteries on me.
But sorry to just totally derail.
But like the context of like I knew that going in of like there's gonna be a character who looks like me, and it's like I'm pretty sure this is the character who's supposed to look like me, and then like he is not at first like a very like good character. He's not. He defrauds you basically.
I had to clarify. I was like, no. First of all, he becomes cool, and second of all, I'm just saying you guys look alike. It's not that you're. When he's
you
cool
remind
at the
me
end
of
the
this.
game,
it's not a judgment on your character.
Yeah. It's funny because there's a side mission. I don't know if you guys have done it in Infinite Wealth where you become a waiter, and that whole side mission hinges because the owner of the restaurant thinks. He mistakes you for someone else because he's like, oh yeah, I have an applicant who has a poofy afro. You're that guy, right? And Ichimon's like, well, no. But then because he's so nice, he's like, well, I guess I'll help you anyway. And then at the end, the guy that was supposed to show up arrives, and he looks nothing like Ichiban except for like a vaguely similar afro. And he's just like, you thought I was this guy? Like, so I feel like we're having a similar thing here.
Yeah, I'm just going off facial hair, just hair exclusively. But anyway, sir, I wanted to just derail us for a second because I put Tomizawa next to you and the comments can let me know if I'm an insane person. But
so
I want to hear more about your thoughts on the game.
So now a few viewers are encouraged to see if they remember me, and B, compare me to this fictional character, and then provide a bunch of personal information. First 4 and last 5 of your social security as well. But yeah, I really dig these games. Like they're really good at just inserting kind of jokes that don't feel mean, or kind of like as a contrast to like GTA that often feels very punching down. Like I like a lot of the places that they sneak jokes. So like the last thing I did was the trolley introduction. And seeing that like, it's called Snap Them Sickos or whatever.
Oh my
and
God.
It's just like their idea of what a sicko is very different from what it's just like these like guys in Speedos kind of just like dancing in the middle of the street and stuff, and kind of hanging on walls. And then it's like, I don't know. I wouldn't describe these people as sickos. They're more weirdos.
They're kind of like they're like buff Tingles.
Yeah, which I would not describe Tingle as a sicko. He's just a weirdo. Like there's a bit of nefariousness in being called a sicko.
I don't have the full context here, but I'd call him a sicko.
But But yeah, and then at the end of that introduction, they basically turn it on the guy who's snapping the photos and calling him a sicko, right? So like it feels very much like they understand how to make jokes without it feeling weird, and just a lot of the localization I find really really good. There's like a random side mission where you're serving lemonade for this kid, and you're walking around, and it's like, oh, make sure that the person that you're handing it to wants lemonade. And then so you'll just see like, oh, it's so hot. Like I could really go from some lemonade. And it's like there's a guy who very clearly does not want lemonade, because the line he says as you're walking around is like, oh, apple juice all the way. All other drinks are the devil's piss. And it's just like I don't think that's what they wrote in Japanese, but like I'm sure they channeled the essence of that line perfectly and made it something that is just as funny in English. So yeah, very I think these games. And like I only started playing when Yakuza 0 came out, back when they were called Yakuza games. And I basically played all of these up to then, and so now I feel like I've become a vet versus like, oh I kind of dabble in Yakuza games, and now I've played a bunch of them, and so these games have become comfort food. So I'm just I really like listening to all these characters. The one thing though is that like try as they might, they can't make Kiryu actually look old. Even though like the only time he's ever not looked like Kiryu, like the fault is in 0, where he looks like he's from the 80s, right? And so he's very young face. But then here it's just like, I don't know, his salt and pepper hair. We're not going to change, like he's not going to start getting wrinkles or looking at all old, and he's still like the most buff person you've ever seen.
Right, because he's supposed to be in his early 50s. I remember seeing a fan say that like they did the math.
Pretty old. Yeah.
Also, I think I thought in my mind that the hair was like he dyed it that, and that wasn't his like, oh, he's old hair. I thought because he was trying to conceal his identity, he purposely it was like he did that because it looked so unnaturally gray to me.
Yeah, he looks different. He doesn't look older. He just looks like he just tried on a different hairstyle, and then he looks about like. I wouldn't say he's like that much older than even Tomizawa, right? For example, it's just like if you see these three dudes walking around, Ichiban, Tomizawa, and Kiryu, you would not say like, well, one of them is very clearly older than the rest of these, right?
It's just three middle-aged men hanging out,
yeah,
pretty much.
Which is not a thing you see. It's like the opposite of most RPG parties, right? Where it's just like a bunch of young kids trying to save the world, and this is just like bunch of 40-year-old unemployed people trying to figure out what to do in Hawaii, right?
Yeah, no, I love it for that reason. Yeah, Infinite Wealth might be my current game of the year front runner, I think, having finished it a week or two ago. Yeah.
Nice. I hope to join you in that finishing that game line, but that's gonna be there's so much stuff coming out, and I'm so behind on the big RPGs.
Yeah, right.
And Balatro happened too.
Balatro happened.
Yeah, we live in a post-Balatro society now. Okay, is there anything else you want to touch on, Serial, before we move on?
This is a quick one because I haven't played a ton of it, but I really enjoyed Penny's Big Breakaway. As like, I wouldn't even necessarily like it's the aesthetic of it is very like throwback to like Knight's Sonic the Hedgehog, like 3D era Sonic the Hedgehog, and I guess by 3D era I mean like the Dreamcast era, because I guess he is still
or maybe even a little bit before that even
yeah. In that it's like very level. It's like basically what I wanted out of a platformer for a long time, and it feels like they basically just like took a mashup of like Sonic the Hedgehog and Mario Odyssey's moveset, and then they also just made it like this kind of run-based thing where you can get through the levels and like just kind of explore and platform, and there are like hidden objects and stuff, but a lot of it feels like you are trying to string together all these combo moves and stuff, and so like you feel like you can. Like there is not just like I can just move through this and get to the end. It's like you want to do it with stats. So it feels like Devil May Cry for platforming, where it's like you can get these really long combos. You can get these strings of moves that you're combining, like all of these moves that you're doing in a row. And so you're thinking about like, 3 or 4 moves ahead of if I want to, not break my combo, I have to start switching things up, right? Because there's like a system where if you do the same move multiple times in a row, you don't get a combo for it. And it's like it feels like a really cool alternative to like a lot of other platformers where a lot of some of the appeal is like attacking things or like jumping on monsters in like Mario, and there are enemies in Penny's Big Breakaway. There are these little penguins that latch onto you, but it feels like this game could be entirely without those enemies and you would still have a blast just like trying to get through the end. And so like it almost feels like a lot like Tony Hawk too, where it's just like you have this level and you have a run and you're trying to make sure that you're full comboing the level as much as possible. And it's really fun to play because you can almost kind of mash and get and see cool things happen. But like stringing together all the yo-yo moves, I think is really novel. I think for platformers.
Yeah, I need to play more of it. Shay is a little cool on it. Like he came, especially the more time he spent with it, I feel like he kind of cooled on it more and more. But that combo platforming thing, I haven't heard anyone compare it to Tony Hawk, but I like that, and that makes me kind of want to give it more time. I want to play it more. I was not turned off by it by any way. There's a lot of huge games right now. It's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Same. I need to know, Serial, on a scale of 1 to 10, how horrifying do you find Penny herself?
Not very. I don't find her horrifying. It's a little weird, but it feels like she's perfectly in line with like the mascots of that era.
Yeah, well,
This is a
you're
trick
a brave
question,
man.
or
What is Penny?
She's a jester,
Oh, I
right?
don't
Is
know.
that what we decided last week? She's like a jester?
yeah.
Well, she's a
jester, 'cause at the
a busker. I meant like, is she an animal? Is that
Well,
is
what's a busker?
It's somebody who like plays music on the street for money.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think that she's human, right? Or human-esque.
I mean, no
She's
one
not
else
an
in that
animal.
world is human, really.
Yeah.
I mean, no, she's not an animal, but everyone else is like kind of robots. They kind of like they kind of look like Bomberman's
Yeah.
race. I don't know. They have similar
Yeah,
eyes.
whatever
Bomberman.
Bomberman
What do you call Bomberman's people?
Bomber person.
Yeah,
Bomberman. Yeah, I've only played like an hour of Penny's Big Breakaway. It's better than the most recent Bomberman game I played. I'll tell you that.
I forgot about that. Yeah, that's probably
Charles
true.
will never forget about that.
Oh no, I'll never forget the weird lore of that game.
Alrighty. Before we get into housekeeping real quick, I'll just quickly shout out the Outlast Trials. Don't have a ton to say about it because I'm still like early in it, but I fired it up just because I beat those first 2 games, and I think that series is like solid. Like I remember the first game liking more, but thinking the second game was scarier, if that makes sense. I think I just like the more sort of contained nature of the first game, because the second one was a little bit more open, not open world, but just open-y.
Wait, is this an Outlast sequel?
Yeah, this is the 3rd Outlast game.
Oh,
But
I mean, I know that it has the word Outlast in the title, so I shouldn't be surprised, but I had no idea that's what this was. Yeah, okay, weird. Sorry.
yeah, it's been in early access for a year, 2 years now, something like that. But it just came out of it's in 1.0 now. It's out for realsies. The sort of big thing with this game is that it's multiplayer for the first time, where you can form a squad of up to 4 players and basically go do missions together. But it's still in that like Outlast format where it's more about avoiding enemies than confronting them head on, where like you're hiding under beds, you're jumping into closets and stuff like that. And the intro of the game is pretty much just like a new Outlast game, where like it's single player and they're just trying to introduce you to the mechanics, and you do this kind of like hour-long sequence of going through this like mansion basically and dodging all these enemies and traps and doing some like light objectives, and you're just like, oh yeah, this feels like Outlast, because it's been a long time since Outlast 2 came out. And I was like, yeah, this is pretty much what I remember. Yeah, it's kind of it's kind of creepy. It's basically a spooky stealth game, honestly. And then once you complete that, it like opens up to the game proper, where like, and it's weird because you go into like this underground lab, and there's like this staff there, and you're just this captured inmate, and you see all these other inmates, and some of them are real players running around. And they're like, yeah, this is your cell. And yeah, when you want to go out and do stuff, just group up with some other inmates and just go out there and not die. And but they have like this is the first time they've ever given me like any like real weapons, where like basically every character can be like a class, for lack of a better term, where like, okay, you can each carry one type of like weapon or item, where like one of them is like a smoke mine, We're like, okay, if enemies step on this, they'll be blinded for a period of time. And you can get a chance to run away, or like one person's a healer where they have a healing spray to blast on everybody. I think another one was like some weird like stun device or something, but pretty much like nothing that you have kills anyone. It just sort of repels them for a little bit. And then I guess you just sort of decide like, who's going to carry what. I don't know if you can carry like two of the same thing. Like, can I have a team of just like stun grenade dudes or what yet? I haven't had a chance to go out in a real mission yet. Like, I kind of stopped right after I got to the sort of that area. But even just looking around of like, oh, there's different vendors and there's like a leveling process but like the leveling is called therapy, where it's like, oh, you need to be therapy level 2 before you can go to the engineer to make you new stuff. And I think that's just a term for like the missions of like their therapy sessions, quote unquote. Because
Okay.
it's like because the first game was like set in like an asylum,
Yeah.
So it's like, and that's kind of like been an underlying like element of the series is like insane asylums and that kind of things. I think it's just playing off of that. You're surrounded by all these like this twisted medical staff that's just being like, no, you're lucky to be here. You wouldn't be here unless you were here for a reason. We've mutilated you. There's a lot of good hand mutilation in this game so far. If you're a Resident Evil Village fan,
Good hand mutilation.
yeah. This game gives Ethan Winters a run for his money at multiple points within the first hour. And yeah, it seems fine so far. Like I need to get in and see what it's like to run with other players. Someone was trying to play with me and then I wasn't ready and I felt bad because they were like bumping up against me in a way that was like, oh, do you want to like interact with me or something? Like they just kept like physically hitting my avatar. You can also play chess with people, which is weird. There's like a chessboard in the middle of the room and you could sit down and just play chess with another player.
That's kind of cool.
Nobody was doing it though.
No. Does it with it being more open and co-op focused? Do you feel like it's something like them trying to kind of cash in on like the Phasmophobia kind of Lethal Company, very like co-op horror trend?
It feels like it. I guess it would have to be before, because it was in early access before Lethal Company was a thing. But I want to say it was around the time that Phasmophobia started blowing up that this game like went live. My timeline might be weird there, but I feel like when I first heard about this game, it was like the same-ish time.
Yeah, maybe cash in is a little harsh, but like, does it feel like it's in that kind of lineage that it's moving more towards?
Yeah, it's like Outlast spin on like co-op horror. You're not fighting enemies necessarily. You're just trying to find your objectives and get in and out alive, because there's like all these collectibles that you can, like optional objectives and collectibles you can find on a level. So I think it's just about communicating like, hey, how can we do this? Let's not get seen. Oh, you go hide there. I'm going to throw my like smoke thing and hope that, that gives us time to get away or whatever. Yeah. And like in my head, that seems like what they're going for. I haven't gotten to that point yet. I'm going to do that soon.
It's like a new genre. It's like be in a scary place with your friends. Is like that's like people really like that right now.
Yeah, is that what we're calling this genre? Yeah, spooky friend time.
Spooky friend time.
Yeah, it seems solid so far.
Cool.
I haven't, again, like my early access discussion before, I did not touch this game at all in early access, so I'm coming into it fresh for the first time. I haven't really. It seemed like people were generally warm on it throughout early access, was my impression. So, I guess that's a good sign. But we'll see now that it's done, how it holds up. So yeah, I'll probably have an update in the next week or so.
Sweet.
But yeah, let's jump into some housekeeping here. Did you know that you can purchase Game Informer single issues of the physical magazine at GameStop, your local GameStop, for just $7.99. As we mentioned, we just announced our No Rest for the Wicked issue, so that should be popping up soon. But as Charles is holding up, if you're watching the video version, you can get up our last issue, which was the Apex Legends issue. Kyle has one too, in case you need a double convincing.
I will also carefully cover my address as I...
Yeah, don't dox yourself on the podcast, please. But it's a great way to support Game Informer. Of course, you can also subscribe to the magazine digitally as well. Either way, does a great job supporting us, and thank you very much to our subscribers. Of course, you can follow all of us on social media throughout various platforms. You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Marcus Stewart 7. Kyle, where can folks find you?
The internet. Just
okay.
generally, just Google Kyle Hilliard. You'll find me.
Fire up AOL.
Yeah, I have no problem. Sure, I should log into my old AOL address, see what kind of junk mail's in there.
Yeah. And Charles, where can people find you?
Find me at ChuckDuck365, wherever. Don't Google me. I'm just saying. I'm just warning you. Don't do that. ChuckDuck365 is good enough.
There are some skeletons in the closet that Google has access to. Serial Vasquez, where can folks find you?
You know, I'm buying into Charles' thing of don't Google me, but you can find me on social, Serial Vasquez on Twitter, and I think it's just Serial on Blue Sky. Those are the real kind of places that I hang out. But yeah, that's where you can see me post about stuff, I guess.
Awesome. And you can see Game Informer as a whole post about things on a variety of social media platforms, such as Elon Musk presents X, formerly known as Twitter, I think is the full name of the platform now.
Is it now?
It is this week, I guess. Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky, as we mentioned before, TikTok, as well as our Twitch channel. We are still, speaking of Twitch, going through our super replay of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. So tune in every Friday for that. We also have our No Rest for the Wicked live stream up on our second YouTube channel called Game Informer Shows. We also do other streams throughout the week, so stay tuned for any new episodes of that coming up soon. And also be sure to follow our other podcasts, All Things Nintendo with Brian Shea. And of course, special shout out to our podcast editor, Matt Storm, aka DJ Stormageddon. Follow their podcast, Fun and Games, as well as Reignite, which is a BioWare-focused podcast. And yeah, as we wrap up Housekeeping, Serial, you're not here randomly. You have a special announcement that you have to make.
Yeah.
So,
earlier this morning, I guess when this podcast was recorded, my studio, not this, I don't own it, but the studio where I work, announced their first game. It's called Merchants of Rosewall, and it's a fantasy shopkeeping game. If you've ever played stuff like Potionomics or Reciteer, those kinds of games, somewhat Animal Crossing adjacent, where you're managing a shop and largely the people in it, where you're managing the people who work in your shop, and there's a whole story based around that, but you're also just kind of managing a lot of supplies and stuff. You're not necessarily, you're not punching things off of trees, but you're doing a lot of trading with other people and other players. And so it's this big kind of economic sim where you manage a shop of workers and you're leveling up and you're making new things. And then a lot of it, it's in a fantasy world, so you're dealing with a lot of elves and orcs and such. But one of the things we wanted to do as a studio was to kind of question a lot of the kind of fundamentals of fantasy fiction, and so we're trying to treat some of the topics that we touch on with nuance and kind of questioning a lot of assumptions that people have about fantasy settings. And so it's a different kind of fantasy where you're not necessarily going out and fighting or anything. There's no swords or anything like you have to build or upgrade, and you're not fighting wars or anything. It's mostly about what happens after those kinds of events happen in a fantasy world. And so that's the game I've been working on at Big Blue Sky Games. And so
at what capacity have you been working on it, sir? What's your role there?
I'm a narrative designer, which means a lot of different kind of small things. So I wrote a large majority of the main kind of quest line and some of the side quests, and also just barks and kind of those kinds of ancillary lines for this. You go into this person's shop, okay, what do they have to say to you, and kind of trying to build up some of the world and building, and we have a bunch of other people who were also part of that process, like Crow Tomkis, our senior narrative designer. I basically working with him, and by the time I came in, the world was already set up. We had this premise, and so my job largely was to kind of come in and write a story around that took place in this world, basically.
That's cool.
So we have we have a couple of other writers that are also working. So It's a group effort, and yeah, we're really proud of it. So wishlist us on Steam. We do have a Steam page, so if people want to go check it out, watch the trailer. It's weird to say that there is a trailer for this game that I've been working on for so long. But yeah, Merchants of Rosewall. Catch it.
Do you have? Is there
Q3.
like a release window, or are you?
Q3 of this year, so
Okay, cool.
Q3 2024.
How's it?
Is it
What's it
just
like being on the other side of these questions, Suro?
I'm trying to not say as much as I can to like not spoil things and
Of course.
say the things I'm not supposed to say, but like
And what happens
yeah,
in the
it's the aliens come in and
The
eat up
aliens
everyone. Yeah.
No, totally understandable.
That's not what happened. That's not a spoiler. That's not what happened.
It's a joke.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for having me on. This was a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it just PC, by the way? That was the last thing I was going to ask.
Yeah. For now it is just PC. Yeah. We're looking at other platforms, but right now we're full steam ahead on the PC version.
Cool. Well, yeah.
Awesome.
Congrats on the announcement and the trailer and everything.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah,
really
please go
exciting.
check that out, everyone. And yeah, before we wrap up for good, we do have just a few listener questions I want to get into. Of course, if you want to influence the show, you can send us questions either through email at podcast@GameInformer.com, or if you're part of the Game Informer Discord, which you can join by subscribing to our Twitch channel just one time. We have a Game Informer show channel. I usually go in there during most weeks and do a big call for listener questions. I know it's been a while since we've done some, so I'm excited to see what's been stewing with you guys over the last couple weeks, including one email from Adam Mitwee asking, "Hello, Game Informer podcast team. I've been a gamer since the Atari days and just turned 45. For the last year or so, I've not been able to find any games I enjoy. I've tried dozens. Have I finally outgrown games? I still listen to video game podcasts, read the magazine, and follow numerous gaming websites. Don't worry, I'm not depressed, but I feel like gaming has always been a huge part of my life, and now it has faded away some. I was just wondering if any of you have went through this similar period of time and what got you back into games. Was it revisiting old favorites, trying new genres, or something else? Not trying to be a downer, just wondering what has worked for others."
I've certainly been there, yeah.
First of all, don't worry. The line, "Don't worry, I'm not depressed," not convincing. Not convincing at all. No offense. I'm sure this person's a nice person.
Yeah.
That was,
But I've certainly been there. It's a little harder when it's like you've made your job to play video games, right? Like, even in the periods of my life where I was not working for an outlet, or I was doing min-max, I worked for a publisher for a little while, like, I was still sort of like playing video games as like part of my professional sort of career, no matter what. But like the thing that always, when I have those periods of time where like truly there will be times where I'm like, man, maybe I don't like video games anymore. It always takes like there's some game that I'm not expecting that, or maybe it is one that I am expecting that really pulls me out. And I'm like, oh, right, I love this medium. And it clicks for me all over again. And like, I don't know what that game is, but like for me, it's usually like a familiar genre that I enjoy, and this is like just the best version of it that's come out recently that really grabs me in a big way. That's what it always is for me, but I'm sure it's different for everybody.
Yeah, I have not gone through the same situation, but like in a similar way, I've had instances, especially obviously working in this line of work, times where I feel like I've played too much games, and like maybe it's like a little bit of burnout, but not into like I don't like video games anymore. It's more like I've been playing nothing but games, and I need to do something else to take a break from it. And then in that instance, it's just like, okay, maybe I'll catch up on episodes of this show that I put down because I've been playing too much games, basically, or like I'll read more of this book I've been chipping away at and try to like finish it, or basically just do anything else. Like it's sort of like get that separation again when you have this job and you're playing. Because I play a lot of games just even for fun because it's like my number one hobby. It's the thing I would rather fill my free time with the most is playing a game than anything else. But like this year has been pretty good with that because it's like I've at least like I've taken up a gym membership. So I've been working out like a lot more, and that, that's filled some time and given that separation and just, finishing some more books and some of that other stuff. So I guess it's like almost like the inverse of the problem, where it's like I've kind of chosen to not play as much, not because of a lack of passion, just to sort of like almost like preemptively stop myself from like burning out on it, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I've... Oh, go ahead, Charles.
No, you go ahead.
I feel like as someone who's now on the other side of that kind of line of work, I feel like I can be more selective of, okay, I don't necessarily have to play everything that comes out. I can kind of choose to pursue other interests. And I think that's definitely, Marcus, what you said about like finding other interests that really kind of fuel your passion for like doing things, I think can really help. Where, you know, I recently, you know, started reading more books, and I got really into building model kits and stuff. And like those acts as a way to make gaming feel more special when I do it, where I don't feel like, okay, well, the only use I have of my free time is to play video games, and so that's what I do all the time. And so if you can say like, you know, on sometimes I want to do other things, or sometimes I don't want to, you know, sometimes I just want to watch TV. I think having that rotation is eventually you will get that desire to play something, and then it'll be for me it's always like something specific of like, oh, I really like now starting Infinite Wealth. Like that's the kind of thing that I'm like, I haven't looked forward to like playing a game for a while, because like, you know, during the down months and kind of the early part of the year, I didn't really have anything to kind of really fuel that passion. And so yeah, you don't necessarily have to always like video games. You can always invest your time, you know, in other things as well.
Yeah. I was gonna say even I think there's also, and maybe this is specifically line of work, but I feel like I had it before I was in games professionally, was like, I feel like there's a lot of unspoken but kind of like peer pressure to like jump on whatever the latest trend is, of like you'll be on social media and like everyone's talking about this game, everyone's talking about that game, and it's like, oh, I kind of feel like I gotta play this game so I can be part of the conversation. And here's the thing, it doesn't actually matter at all. Unless you have like a group of friends that are like actively trying to get you to do a thing, and that's how you're hanging out with them, then I guess that's like a scenario. But like, you don't have to be up with the zeitgeist. That's not a rule. So the way I usually get around if I'm like getting burned out on like recent games specifically, of like just trying to like whatever new thing, is I just go back to stuff I liked like in the past, or like games I missed that came out like 10 or 15 years ago. I recently, well, me and Kyle will talk about it one day, but I recently played Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 just because I was just like, what are those about?
Did you finish 2?
Oh, I finished 2. I actually, I've been holding off on playing 3 because we wanted to do it with Alex, but I've been like, I was going through them too fast, so I got to slow myself.
I was going to ask if you were just waiting for the remake or not.
Also, I kind of want to have the context. Yeah. Depending on how, I don't know when the remake is coming out is the other thing. I don't think we have a confirmed
Also, if
window.
once you finish 2, you have to like sit in a chair and sort of exhale for like 3 or 4 years. I mean, that's just like how you got to do it.
That's what we did.
That's what I did.
I keep meaning to ask, is 2 your favorite? Because you talk about it like it's your favorite.
2's my favorite.
That makes sense.
2 is maybe my second favorite game of all time, period. Maybe.
2 is really good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anyways, the other version of that is it was probably like a year ago now, or a little less than a year, but like I was like, you know, I missed those old, not old, the like Tomb Raider reboot. Like I went back and I played those again. I played Tomb Raider and Rise of the Tomb Raider, and I don't like the third one, so I didn't play that. But playing those games again, it was like, no one's telling me how to do it. There's no timeline. There's no conversation I have to keep up with. And going from that, I find it's easier to be like, okay, now I'll see like of this big trend or whatever games I missed in the last month. Am I actually interested in any of those? Did I just want to keep up with the conversation? And so I think it's good to like, if you're really insistent on games being a hobby, there's no reason you have to stay modern.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another side of it, is that like you can, I think sometimes being up on those conversations and following coverage of them can make you feel like you have FOMO if you're not, you know, like if everyone says like, oh, this game you should play, you know, check it out, and you don't do that, you feel like, oh, am I missing out on having a good time? But sometimes it's okay to disconnect from the conversations and just kind of take a break from thinking about them in that way, because then like a recommendation feels like an obligation of like, oh, I feel bad that I haven't played this game. And so, but there are all these other games I can play. And so you feel like it starts feeling more and more like something you have to do versus something you're doing because you like it. Right. And so like disconnecting and then coming back and feeling like, okay, now that I have time away, what do I want to do most? And then, what games do I like? I think it'll clarify a lot of what it is you like about games and not have it feel like, well, I'm part of game culture, so I have to keep up with every video game that comes out.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like, I guess to wrap this up, Adam, that you're not like falling out of love with games if you're still engaging with like the industry. Maybe you're just like secretly burned out. And I'd say, the key, maybe just don't force it. Like, if you're not feeling like actually playing anything, then just wait until you see or hear something that comes along that piques your interest, and then maybe try that. But maybe just don't feel the need to like, oh, I got to play everything that I'm listening to is talking about because, I want to feel like I'm still in it, Like, just don't make it an obligation is, I think, the big takeaway.
Or you can just go ahead and download Helldivers 2. We all know you're thinking about it.
Democracy calls. Troidal Power via Discord asks, thinking about both Matt Storm, our lovely podcast editor, and I finally getting sucked into Balatro. Is there a difference between a game being addicting and a game being good? If a gameplay loop is so satisfying that you keep wanting more, i.e. Balatro or Vampire Survivors, is that game automatically good? Or is it bad for sucking up so much time? Or is it a secret third quality? So, because is a game being hard to pull away from automatically mean it's good?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because there's certainly games that I have like felt almost like I just need to play this out of obligation, right? Like it's not even that I'm necessarily enjoying myself. It's just like I just got to do one more to get this right, and I don't know if that's like healthy or an instant qualifier of a good game. And also the term addicting, like I just I don't use that to describe games anymore. I don't like that as like a complimentary term to describe a game. But I mean, there's certainly that idea of like, oh, I just got to do one more. I can't like not being able to put something down, of whether that's good or bad. That's an interesting question. Yeah.
It's like, I feel like it's like to make a game that has a loop as satisfying as something like Balatro is a recent example. Like I feel like that's good to like, if you've crafted, like if you found some weird secret formula to make me want to not play anything else but this game. and like a lot of games try to do that and don't succeed. It's like that is like a good design to some degree, right? To nail that code.
I guess the big problem for me is like free to play stuff that's like really wants you to keep playing like
right. It's like, how is it getting you to play? Maybe?
Like that.
Like Balatro doesn't rely on that stuff to get you to keep playing, but
right.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it has to do with the design, because I think a lot of games are explicitly designed to like, keep players coming back in for like extrinsic rewards versus implicit rewards, right? So if you're playing Balatro because you enjoy playing it and you're having fun, I don't necessarily see anything wrong with that. But if you're like, logging into an MMO or whatever live service game, and you like, I don't know if I'm really into it, but like if the reason you're playing a game is to, well, I may as well log in and get the rewards and do a thing, and then I'll be done once I've collected my like daily things, or I don't want to miss a day, because then my streak will be gone and I won't collect the thing. But the activity of playing the game doesn't feel like, well, I wouldn't play it if I didn't have the rewards, right? Like that's
it's like
kind
the
of
battle
difference,
pass.
right?
Like our battle pass is good because they're designed to be like, no, you got to keep playing if you want. And it's like, and I would say no as someone that's kind of sick of battle passes.
Right. Like, and the way they structure those is that like you benefit immediately by buying the battle pass, and so you feel like if I'm playing and I don't have the battle pass activated, then I'm missing out. And I think that for games like that, I've like a thing that I've started doing is like playing it without that kind of expectation at first to see if I even like it, because I think it's very easy, especially if you have a friend group who's like, oh, let's all get into Fortnite or let's all get into Helldivers, right? I don't know how much pay for stuff there is in Helldivers, but it definitely feels like you benefit in the long run by making a big initial investment and then maximize, because a lot of it is like experience multipliers or things that will be more efficient later on. But then that's the trick of like, oh, you're already so invested before you even figured out whether you like the game or not. And I think a lot of games are optimizing towards that, of like basically getting you to play so compulsively that you forget whether or not you like the actual game or not, right?
Yeah, that's like the dark side of that, where you're just like, why? The game's not that good to warrant how much time I'm spending in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Where in Balatro's case, the game is that good to warrant how much time I've spent into
no
it.
dailies in Balatro, right?
No, it's just the dailies that you set in your head of like, I'm going to beat a run with the green deck today.
No more dailies. We're done with those, right? Let's just get rid of those. No more dailies in games. Thank you.
Yeah. How about hourlies?
Ugh.
I'm for
Let's
it.
jack it up.
Don't even.
Yeah. I mean, you joke, but there are places that like will update their in-game shops every few hours. Where
That's
they're
true.
like,
I mean, that's
if
true,
you come
yeah.
back at like 7 p.m., that's when the update hits, and then like we refresh our inventory of weapons and stuff, and now you can buy new randomized things.
Yeah, like the moment I have to start punching like game battle pass schedules into like my Google Calendar is when it's like, okay, this is not. I shouldn't have to do this. The game should not be requiring me to keep up to this degree with
That's
what's
the
happening.
uninstall zone for me, for sure.
Yeah, you don't want to go in the uninstall zone. It's a dark. It's like the Shadow Realm, basically. All right. Well, we got a couple more listener questions, but we'll save those for next week because we do have one last segment before we go home. Kyle, I'll turn it to you.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Charles, putting you on the spot now. Marcus put it on me. I'm putting you. Do you remember what this segment is called, Charles?
It's called the lunch break, parentheses, but instead of, but like dance break.
It's all falling apart.
I was just gonna say, like, is there a jingle for this? But then it was like, oh, this
I
would
gotta
have to
make
be
a
a long
jingle
jingle,
for
I
this.
guess.
Yeah. No, it's the official name that is we've decided is the lunch break : like a dance break but with lunch, and then in parentheses working title, obviously.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
And
So-
Charles, center everybody if they're not familiar with this segment, because I think we did it 2 weeks ago at this point now.
Yeah, maybe 3 even. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'll tell you a little bit about me as a person. Is I get very bored if I say the same thing over and over again every day. So whenever I started clocking out for lunch, I just started making a game of it, and at some point that game turned into me making parodies of songs but giving them lunch specific lyrics. So the first one, we just passed the 1 year anniversary of me doing this.
We did. Yeah, congrats.
Oh, so
Hey!
these are like the messages you post in like Slack or
Slack.
Discord where you're like,
Yes.
I'm going on lunch break. Okay.
Yeah. So the first one, it was "Come On Eileen," and it was lunchtime for me, grabbing something to eat like a sandwich. We will have to see.
We're getting 2
So that was the
songs
first
today.
one. What'd you say?
That's why we're getting 2 songs today.
So are you posting these lyrics word for word, or are you like sending voice memos in the Slack chat?
Generally speaking, it is text, just because that's easier to
Okay.
do. But at a certain point, I did start stepping it up and making audio versions of some of them, or as like special bonus ones. So last time I was on, we did one, and it was a parody of WTF IGO, which was like a Bo Burnham song on his like inside bonus tracks
inside
that I
outtakes.
did recently.
Yeah.
That Kyle posted the song in the Slack, and I was like, I like that song.
I think we joked around that because you've gone from that to the audio clips and stuff like that, that it's just going to escalate. So one day you're going to surprise us with a fully produced music video.
I have considered. So currently, I'm making my big 1 year anniversary song, which has taken several of my lunch breaks at work to be recording stuff.
Oh my god!
I'm
When's
probably
this
gonna
be?
finish it tomorrow on my day where I'm not working.
Yeah.
This is going to be like
So would
Hamilton.
you say that this is taking up less than your lunch break, or like you feel like you're now investing more time into saying I'm going on lunch break
Than eating lunch.
than actually eating lunch?
If it takes up a certain amount of time, I'm like, I can't justify taking this long. There's one time I did a parody of Escape the City from Sonic Adventure 2, and that one was like, this took too long. I'm gonna eat lunch in like 15 minutes or however much time was left, because I was like, I just spent so long writing this.
So we had Kyle sing it
as,
instead.
as your boss, Charles. You do not need to do this. There is no obligation.
No,
to do
yeah,
this.
no one's
Please
asking
eat your
to.
lunch.
Like
It's all-
we don't like when you don't post a song, everyone gets really offended on staff. Like we're no song today. What the hell?
I told my partner about this yesterday. I was like, yeah, I forwent my lunch writing song today so I could record instead. And she was like, what, did someone check? Like, did you have to tell them you weren't doing it? And I was like, yes, not.
I might check if you. I would be like, "Are you okay?" If there wasn't a number, like after a week or two, I'd be like, "Everything all
Do a
right?" over
wellness
there? You
check.
okay?
Anyways, some of them have been audio, like the one we're gonna do today. But Kyle was just like, you can't keep doing this and keep it in the Slack. It's a waste of time.
It's a waste of talent.
We gotta make it public. We gotta make it public.
So this one is Final Fantasy specific.
Yeah, in honor of Rebirth, which, in a circular kind of way, Charles, posting that Bo Burnham song, WTF IGO, which if you know that song, you know what the lyrics are. That was it. That was me. I was sharing that song because I was like, "This is me in the first 15 minutes of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth." Listen to this song, and you'll know my state of mind. But here we go. Here's I'm gonna hit play here in just a minute.
This was just real quick. This was inspired by Final Fantasy 16.
Oh, okay.
Why I did this one, because the level up in that game is like a choir.
Right. But this is, but now we've it's graduated to Rebirth because we're still in Rebirth mode over here. Okay, everybody ready? Cyril, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, thumbs up from Cyril. Here we go.
Yes.
Charles is going to eat some lunch.
There we go.
There you go.
One more time. We'll just play the beginning part.
Charles is going to eat some lunch.
It's amazing work, Charles. It's incredible.
Thank you.
Incredible.
Good work.
It's a good
no.
good phone notification.
I messed
You
up
closed the stream.
well, the problem was just for behind the scenes stuff. By doing that, I accidentally messed up the template. But don't worry about it, everybody. Let's see. Here we go. All right, Kyle fixed it. We're all good.
Hey,
That's an episode.
that is an episode. Thank you so much for listening and or watching, everyone. Serial, thank you again for making time to come back on the show.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, be sure to check out his new game. Charles, thank you for eating lunch every day, I guess. I really appreciate that.
The new bar I have to hit, just eating lunch, that's great.
Yeah, I'm glad you fill in between breakfast and dinner that you get something in there. Kyle, thanks for having red hair.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, thanks for listening, guys. We will be back next week with another episode of the Game Informer Show. Check out No Rest for the Wicked, our cover story. It's out now. Digital issues and physical issues coming out soon. Until then, bye-bye, everyone. See ya.